Hi, and welcome to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I'm Dupe Witherick, alcohol free wellbeing and transformational coach, and the best selling author of A Cocktail of Clarity, How to Ditch Drinking, Embody a Joyful New Identity, and Thrive Alcohol Free. This podcast will show you that being alcohol free is not what the traditional narrative says. And even though alcohol is so ingrained in our society that it is okay to give yourself permission to stop drinking if you want to. And you do not have to wait until you hit rock bottom. It is certainly not boring, and I believe ditching drinking is just the start to living an extraordinary life. By getting rid of this one thing, it allows the doors to open to endless possibilities and opportunities. Each week, we will have guests on who are at various stages of the alcohol-free journey, from those who are curious to those who have been alcohol-free for years. We will also have experts on talking about different topics relating to alcohol and beyond. Through these conversations, you will discover what it means to thrive alcohol-free. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. I hope you are well and you've had a good week. I've had a really good week. I actually did my first Christmas party, which was a Christmas lunch with a wonderful group of women. I'm part of the Women's Network, and it was just great to exchange stories and to be with like-minded women. We all have goals, and then also we all have challenges as well. So having deep, honest conversations with people, I think connection is so key. And we underestimate it really. And I absolutely think wherever you are in life, having connection, being part of something, having a supportive group of like-minded individuals who you can talk to, meet up with, connect with on a regular basis is so helpful. And so if you are feeling like you're a bit lonely, or you're feeling like you don't really like connecting, it's a bit out of your comfort zone. I know networking can get a bit of a bad rap in terms of having to go and meet people and do that and see people you don't know. But actually, you never know who you'll meet, and you never know what friendships you'll strike up with people. And so I would say today, if you're not connected, and especially if you're going through this alcohol-free journey, of course, Quitlet, books, podcasts, and all the resources we talk about in terms of developing your alcohol-free toolkit are all helpful. But one of the key things is connection. And so I encourage you today to really connect with people. Okay, so today's guest is Rachel Hechtman, a content creator, coach, and founder of Sober in Central Park, LLC. So her personal journey to sobriety began on the 3rd of January 2021, and this has transformed her into a dedicated advocate for living a vibrant, alcohol-free life. Rachel harnesses the power of storytelling and social media to inspire and connect with her audience. She's a life coach and leverages her expertise to help individuals manifest the life they desire, free from the limitations of alcohol. Rachel's mission is to push the sober movement forward in every way possible and demonstrate that you don't need alcohol to have fun. She consults for non-alcoholic beverage brands and facilitates sober events throughout New York City and the Hamptons. Rachel has a degree in cultural anthropology from Dartmouth College and is currently working on her first book that explores the intersection of ADHD and addiction. She's also working on opening a space in New York, which we'll talk about a bit in this episode, and she resides in New York City with her four-legged companion, George. So I'm delighted to have Rachel on, and we have a really great conversation. She shares her story. We talk about the links between ADHD and addiction, and we talk about just the journey of going from a short break to what it leads to next. So without further ado, here is the conversation with Rachel. Enjoy. Welcome, Rachel, to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. It's lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on.
Brilliant. I think what you're doing with Sober in Central Park has been amazing, and you've obviously grown so much over the years. So I'd love to maybe go back to maybe for people that don't know you and might be listening, maybe a quick introduction, and then we can go from there.
Sure, I'd love that. So, wow, Sober in Central Park, it started a little over 3 years ago, which is kind of wild to think about. But my journey really started back in January of 2021 when I tried to do dry January at my mom's request. And I didn't want to do it. And I didn't even think I would be able to make it 30 days without drinking. But I did it. I somehow didn't drink for 30 days. And we can get into the backstory of how I got to that point. But it was COVID still. So there were no like support meetings in person happening. And I really never thought that I needed that. I don't know. So I just somehow white knuckled it for months and didn't drink. And I don't recommend that though for people because that's really hard and not necessary these days. But that's what I did. And at around like almost 9 months into my journey, I realized like I had no friends really. I was all by myself. I had no support. I was scared that I would drink again because I had no one holding me accountable. Like, and I didn't trust
Mm,
myself to hold myself accountable. I still don't in a lot of ways, but I decided I was like, okay, sharing the one or two times I shared about my journey on Facebook or on my old Instagram account, it just felt so real. It felt like a lot, I don't know, like it was more real than when I was telling people in person. And so I
mm,
realized for me, public accountability was a big piece of it. So I thought to myself, I'd make a new Instagram account with the goal of just like publicly holding myself accountable, but also like hopefully making some friends on social
mm.
media. I mean, I had absolutely no other agenda. I didn't think anything. I didn't even know if I was going to show my face at first. I was like, I could just take pictures of Central Park. And then by the third post, I was like doing a transformation side by side. But yeah, I never thought that it would become anything more than like a silly little Instagram account. And then, yeah, it just got a life of its own almost.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. So I love the fact that you managed to do it on your own without any help. That's pretty impressive. And I'd love to maybe hear the backstory in terms of how you got to that dry January in 2021 and thought that that was something you wanted to, or your mum thought that was something that you should do. So maybe tell us a bit
Yeah.
about your drinking career, Rachel.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I still can't believe. Like, I really think back to it. I can't that I was able to do it on my own either. I actually
Mm,
said to my mom once, I was like, "You didn't send me to rehab, so I feel like the you saved a lot. I saved you a lot of money. Like, do maybe you can invest that money into my business?" And she laughed. She was like, "Yeah, I really can't believe you didn't go to rehab." But it goes back. I mean, to my childhood. I think a lot of times there's things that happen in our childhood that obviously like impact us in our teens and adult years. And when I was younger, we moved around a lot. And so I was
mm,
always the new kid, like every few years. And so I think
mm,
that set the tone for just not having consistency in my life and always feeling like I needed to make new friends, have to fit in. That was really unstable for me. And it was also at ages that were really like important in your development.
mm,
So, like when I was going into middle school, going into high school, times where you didn't want to have to worry about making new friends. So,
mm,
when I got to eighth grade, we had moved, and I think I fell in with the cool kids, like the popular kids who I just wanted to have friends. And so they all started experimenting at an early age. I think it was the summer before ninth grade that I drank for the first time. I snuck out of my house. We all met up, got drunk. It was bad. But I realized through that time, it took away a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the just uncomfortable feelings that I always had with me from different things. And I just felt like it was this escape that I liked. But I also, all my friends were doing it. So it was just the
mm,
cool thing to do in my mind.
mm,
But that quickly escalated and got out of control. And I was smoking weed and doing other things very young. Like, and then my parents got divorced and my dad was kind of the disciplinarian. So
mm,
I didn't have that for a little bit and I just went wild. I didn't want to go to school. I would just like skip class. I had an older boyfriend and So it got to the point where I almost like failed 10th grade just because I didn't go to school. And so my mom was like, no, we're not doing this. You gotta go to school is very important to my family. So she sent me to boarding school, which was the biggest blessing ever. And I repeated 10th grade there as a repeat sophomore. And about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months into school, a teacher was like, did you forget to take your medication today? I was like, I don't take medication. And the teacher was like, you need to be assessed for ADHD. That is what's going on. So I got assessed, I got diagnosed, I got put on medication, and my whole world changed. I went from not being able to concentrate, not being able to do my homework, hating school, to having the highest GPA in my school and loving it and excelling
Wow.
and being in all these crazy math programs and feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm fixed. We have a name for what's wrong with me. And it's that I have this thing called ADHD, even though no one ever sat down with me and told me what it actually means to have ADHD, that like you don't produce as much dopamine naturally, that if anything
Mm.
that gives you a dopamine release, like you can get addicted to, whatever. So I didn't know that. So I get to college and I just, after not being like boarding schools, they are always watching you, very strict rules, like it's very rigid. So to go from that to free for all in college, I
Mm.
just it was bad. So yeah, I used alcohol to numb my anxiety, my depression, which really just made both of those worse. I was like the party girl, was always just looking for an excuse to get messed up. Like that's what I
Mm.
thought was fun. So it took me forever to graduate college. I had to leave twice for like mental health reasons. And there was a lot of other things going on that weren't just alcohol. So, like a lot of party drugs. I was into the rave scene. Um, so I never thought I'd be sober. I thought that would never in a million years. But then after college, like drinking so normalized when you are in certain groups of people, and I would surrounded myself with other heavy drinkers. So I didn't feel like I was weird or doing anything not
Mm.
in the norm. Happy hours after work every night, whatever it was, I was always finding an excuse to just drink. I kind of stopped doing some of the party drugs and stuff in my 20s, and then alcohol was a socially acceptable thing that I could still use to numb and hide from my feelings. So it just got out of control. It got to a point where I was just wanted to stay on my couch, drink by myself, not go out. I got paranoid. I just didn't want to do anything. And I started gaining a ton of weight and no motivation. I was just stuck in like a low vibrational state of being that was really depressing. And I really just, I never thought I'd get out of that place. I mean, it was not fun to be there. And I was also in a relationship that I knew was wrong, but I was kind of trapped. I felt in this relationship because I used to be super impulsive and I went to the courthouse and married this guy that I was in love with at the time, who was from another country, and this whole thing. So I think I was drinking too because I knew I had made a mistake and I just
Mm.
didn't know what to do. So then COVID happened and I had this big pause in life that I really needed in order to realize that alcohol was the root cause of most of my problems. It wasn't the job, it wasn't the ex, it wasn't the apartment, it wasn't all these like external things that I used to blame on my unhappiness. It was really me doing this to myself with the alcohol every day, drinking till I passed out on the couch and waking up with a horrible hangover and repeat. Right. And so I don't know if I would have gotten sober without COVID, like
Mm.
truly. I mean,
Mm.
so yeah. And then dry January, I was starting, and I think I was so sick of like feeling like crap all the time. I got to a point through 2020 where I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't feel like this. So it's almost was like the radical opposite, right? Of not drinking was almost exciting because I had just beaten myself down with the drinking and feeling like crap for so
Mm.
long. It took me a long time to really get the courage. I knew for 6 months before I stopped that I had to stop. Like I knew for years before, but I had kind of said out loud 6 months earlier, I had had my moment where I was like, okay, I actually have to stop drinking or I'm going to die. Like, so.
Thank you for sharing. I mean, that's there's a lot there. But those that 6 months earlier, what happened? What was it that was that aha moment?
So there was one moment, and I think about it often actually. So I had left New York City during the first few months of COVID. And my mom has a lake house in New Hampshire, and she let my ex and my dog be there. And I was in the lake drinking by myself. Well, my dog was with me, but it was me and my dog. And I had a big mixed drink of I don't even know what. And I'm just like floating there. And I remember someone went running by the house, like a runner. And I thought to myself, ugh, what a loser running on such a nice day. And this voice came into my head being like, you're the loser. That person's not the loser. You're the loser. You're sitting here like a blob drinking by yourself. And that person's bettering themselves. Like, what? And I had this internal dialogue. I had like an out of body experience. I can see myself in the lake. And I thought to myself, how do I become more like this person who sees a nice day and is like, I want to go on a run versus I want to go drink alone in the lake. And the voice was like, well, the person's not probably not passing out on the couch every night from drinking. And I was like, yeah, that's true. If I ever want to be someone that can get up and feel motivated and do things that are good for me, I cannot be drinking. And I had a moment there where I was like, okay, well, now I have to do something about it. But it wasn't right away. After that moment, I remember trying to go one day without drinking and then 2 days. But I told myself, this is not me trying to stop. I'm just trying to see if I'm going to have withdrawal symptoms and what it's going to feel like. Can I even do it? And that was hard. It was hard. But I also, at the time, my therapist, who I still see, the same therapist, she wanted me to start measuring how many drinks I was having. And she wanted me to start writing down tallies. And she told me that she wanted me to start saying affirmations. And I was like, I'm not saying affirmations. And she was like, come on, please try. So I remember standing in the mirror and trying to say nice things to myself and like crying hysterically because I didn't believe them. But the more I tried to say them, the more I started to believe them. And so I truly believe that the affirmations that I started saying to myself in the mirror and the self-love I tried to give myself before I stopped drinking went hand in hand with my ability to actually do it 6 months later.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I think so many of us just don't really appreciate ourselves when we're drinking. There's low self-esteem. There's that whole sense of we're not worthy, or we beat ourselves up because we do things that aren't great for us. So the whole affirmations, self-love. Would you mind sharing a couple of the affirmations that you would say to yourself?
Well, they've definitely changed over time. I mean, now
Yeah,
mine are very spiritual and energetic. And because I've worked on
yeah,
myself, my self talk's great. I always ask
yeah,
people, how is your self talk? People I want to start coaching, and they always say it's
yeah,
bad. So
exactly.
that is like super correlated to this
Mm,
journey. You have to be
mm,
able to forgive yourself and love yourself and realize you're doing your best. You are
yeah,
doing your best, and beating yourself up and being mean to yourself is literally not going to accomplish anything except
mm,
bringing you down and making things worse. But that took a lot of inner work. I mean, I think I would stand there and say, like, you're strong, you're brave, you can do hard things. But I would like be pouring tears because I didn't believe it.
mm,
Um, and I think that's where it really hit me like, why am I so hard on myself? But at the
mm,
time, I was doing things that I didn't like. My subconscious was like, stop doing this to me.
yeah,
But yeah, I think it just takes a lot of work. I mean, even today, I'll do something like make a mistake and be like, oh, I'm such an idiot. But then I'll stop and I'll be like, no, I'm not an idiot. I just made a mistake. It's okay.
yeah,
We make mistakes, right?
yeah.
So you just have to be proactive, I think, with course correcting that voice that can be really negative and mean and tell you to drink even when you don't want to drink, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's interesting because you talked about it being normalized, and it absolutely is so ingrained in our society that alcohol is the only thing, the only drug that we have to justify not taking, really. And so uh, when you were with your friends and that group later on, when you were working and doing the happy hours and all of that, did you find it was just a bit of a habit that you just created, or do you think you were using it more for the anxiety and for to fit in and to do that?
I definitely wasn't using it to fit in. Like later,
Mm,
I loved to drink. I found
yeah,
people that also loved to drink. No, I was definitely using it to self-medicate and to
yeah,
escape. And I thought that was the only way to have fun. I didn't know what else you could do for fun. That was fun to me. I spent so many Sundays sitting in dive bars here in New York City. It's crazy to think about how much time I wasted going to boozy brunch, spending a ton of money, stumbling into dive bar after dive bar, and sitting there with the same people over and over and over and thinking that was fun. That's why today I'm like obsessed with sober Sundays because I wake up and I walk a ton of miles in Central Park and I
Yeah.
enjoy being in nature. And that's something old me would have never done in a million years.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's all
Sober
related
Sunday
to a
goat.
liquid. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing what we underestimate, really, isn't it? And what we think is normal and fun and glamorous and sophisticated and whatever word you want to put with it. And it's really interesting. So you also touched on the fact that 6 months later, in those 6 months, you went back and forth and you tried to not drink for a day and 2 days. And so what eventually led you to that 1st of January?
Well, it wasn't even the first. It was
Okay.
I could not commit on the first. There were a few things, but I had gone out on New Year's and gotten really messed up. And by the third, I had a really, really horrible hangover. And my mom was like, come on, try January with me. Like, let's do this. And I had gained so much weight during 2020. I had already felt like I didn't like the way I looked in the mirror for the last few years of my drinking, but 2020, I gained so much. None of my clothes fit me. I had to buy clothes. It was not good for me. I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. My little sister was supposed to get married in June of 2020, and I was the maid of honor. And obviously, that got postponed because of COVID. So it got postponed to October 2021. And in my crazy head, I was like, okay, I have 10 months to try to change everything, which they always say don't do that, but I'm just so all or nothing. I was like, so maybe if I don't drink, I can do Weight Watchers. And so I won't drink all the points that I used to, like, I've tried to do it, but I was like, I won't drink the points. And then maybe I can just look great for my sister's wedding. Like, I had this goal of October
Yeah.
2021. And it was really helpful for me because it really helped me keep going certain times, even if it was a vanity thing. It wasn't. I really just wanted to be healthy, but having a tangible goal of her wedding helped me keep going when I didn't feel like it some days. When I didn't feel like eating healthy, I didn't feel like tracking my points in Weight Watchers. I didn't feel like whatever. I thought about, okay, the wedding's in a few months. I can do this. I can do this. And I did. It worked. I never thought that that was going to work. It was kind of like a crazy goal. I was like, oh, maybe it actually was successful. So, I mean, I also was walking a million miles a day because I didn't know what to do with myself. So I was walking like 10, 12 miles every single day.
And
Yeah.
that was your main thing, was it? That's what you discovered when you stopped drinking.
I just was like, there was nothing to do. So I have a dog. And so every time I wanted a drink, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go walk the dog. So my dog and I just, yeah, we walked a lot. And that's how I ended up in Central Park walking more. And I didn't know my way around Central Park at all, at all. It's weird because I would drink in the park sometimes, but I didn't know where anything was. And so we started off with one path in, and then I'd turn around. And my dog, he would pull me further and further into the park. And so as my journey progressed, I found us walking 3 miles in the park, then four, then five, and we would add new paths on. And that was exciting for me. That kept it new and exciting. And that's where Sober in Central Park came from. It was very literal, very literal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the person who's listening, because at the beginning you did say I wouldn't do it with no support, what would maybe three things? I think you touched on one, which is really having a why or a goal, which will keep you going. But what are maybe three things that could be helpful for them with what you know
I,
now?
I would find a support group, some kind of support group. It can be in-person meetings, online meetings, WhatsApp chats, whatever it is, but find people that get what you're going through and understand. And I do think that because I did it during lockdown still, there was nothing open. No, I mean, there were no
Mm,
parties, there was no work in person, there were no anything, right? So I think that I was almost like in a vacuum. I didn't
mm,
feel like I was missing out on part like so now that things are normal again, it's a lot harder to hibernate from the world for 6 months. You can't really do that the way
mm,
I did. So I do think it was very circumstantial. Just like have to put that out there. I would say you want support. You want to either get a coach that can hold you accountable and help you with your mindset work, different things like that. Or find a group. There's so many now support groups online that are, you can literally join in your car ride home and just listen. So I would recommend that for sure. And there's also so many good non-alcoholic drinks now
Yeah.
that you can use.
Yeah.
So yeah, what I always tell people is you need to find replacements for everything, right? People, drinks, how you fill your time. You want to
Yeah.
set a goal, give yourself 90 days and then reevaluate then. Don't say forever because that just kind of sets you up for failure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what were your thoughts then as you were heading towards that 10-month mark in your sister's wedding? Did you think you'd do that and then you'd go back to it, or what were you thinking at that
Well,
point?
that's when I made sober in Central Park. I made sober in Central
Yeah.
Park 2 weeks before the wedding. And
Right.
I think subconsciously I was scared that after the wedding I was going to go back to the way things were.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it wasn't. My whole life was already different. I mean, I had gotten rid of my ex. I was living by myself. I had a job that I really liked. I had changed so much about my life already, but I needed the accountability and I needed friends. And I got that very quickly on Instagram.
Mm. So tell me what's happened since. Let's go from there. I'd love to hear.
Oh my gosh. Well, in the past 3 years since I started the Instagram account, I have left my full-time job to try to do my own company, which was sober events here in New York City and coaching. So I did a year-long program to get certified as a coach, and I helped dozens of women stop drinking and really shift their mindset and figure out and really be intentional about what they want their lives to look like. I think a lot of times we don't take the time to really sit and think, what do I want and how am I going to get there? So that's one thing I love and doing the events. And then I networked with everybody in New York City. It feels like I just spend my whole day networking. And now I'm on a team of people opening a non-alcoholic bar and cafe. It's called Soft Bar. Will we hopefully be open in the beginning of 2025. And I'm running the events and partnerships for Soft Bar, which is so cool. I never thought I'd be working in the beverage space, but I'm very much in the beverage world, doing a lot of non-alcoholic beverage consulting and yeah, opening this brick and mortar space in Brooklyn soon. So that's been really cool.
Yeah, that's really exciting. It is incredible how the alcohol-free drinks industry's changed so much in the past 4 years. When I stopped drinking, there was hardly anything, but I discovered Naughty, which is an alcohol-free fizz, and that was a game changer for me when I stopped drinking. And I'm also now a judge on the World Alcohol Free Awards, and we had hundreds of entries this year. And so it's really fascinating to see that shift. But what's it like now? Then obviously that's really gone from you wanted to set up the events business and now you're opening a whole new bar, which is going to completely shift culture as well within Brooklyn and New York.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, I've been putting on events here in New York since way before I got sober. I've been in the events world here.
Mm.
But I realized when I was trying to do my own events, there are not many places in this city that you can host an event where alcohol isn't present. Like a
Mm.
lot of the spaces here are bars, restaurants, whatever. And so finding a dedicated space where people can come and make friends and
Mm.
socialize without alcohol being at the center of it or just even like around, that doesn't really exist. There's a few, very few places, but they're
Mm.
not set up for events, really. They're just set up to be bars. So that was something that I had in the back of my head. And at the same time, Carl, who's a co-founder of the bar, he really wanted to open a non-alcoholic bar. And we joined forces with a few other people. And now we're working together. And it's a lot easier to work with a team on a shared goal than working on your own.
Mm.
I will say that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so exciting. And so it's opening in January, February time next year, is it? And
Yeah, so it's everything in New York City. We have to get all of the build out done and we're transformed, but we do have a space. We signed a lease. So now it really just
mm.
depends how quickly the construction can get done. But we are doing some really cool pop-ups with different brands and places. So I can't announce the dry January one yet, but it's in the works and it's going to be so cool and it's going to be a big deal. So if you're listening and you live in New York or are going to be here in January, you want to know more, follow Soft Bar Cafe on Instagram or me, Sober in Central Park. And that's where you can get a lot of the info for our pop-ups and events.
Yeah, really exciting, really exciting. So one of your goals was to make friends when you set up Sober in Central Park. So how's that been since 3 years
Amazing.
ago?
It's been amazing. I've met a lot of the best people. It started off with people just like in the DMs and me talking to other alcohol-free creators around the world to then starting to meet up with people in person. And I go to a lot of events myself and I meet a lot of people at events. And I just kept putting myself out there. And the old version of me would never have done that. I was like of the no new friends mindset. I kept my world very small. I would have never gone to an event alone. And it's like all these things that I used to not do are the things I love to do now. And I went to an event alone last night and it was great. And I made all these new friends. So I think you just have to keep pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And that's where the real growth happens. And that's when you can find the magic of there's nothing like having other alcohol free friends, especially other entrepreneurs or creators. It's cool. And that's such a beautiful, amazing thing about social media is connecting like minded people that maybe would have never met.
Yeah, and I think this community, the alcohol-free community and the movement, it is amazing. Everyone is so generous as well in terms of time and in terms of wanting to just share, and it's great. So that's fantastic to hear. And so you obviously made the friends, you've obviously got the bar. Maybe we talk a little bit about the coaching that you've been doing since as well.
So, yeah, I've been coaching people one on one now for 2.5 years, actually. It started off with people just DMing me. How did you do it? How'd you do it? Can you help me? What's your advice? And I always would try to get back to people. But I realized that a lot of people want to talk to someone that's done it themselves, right?
Mm.
And when you've done it yourself, like you can really relate to the struggles that someone else is going through. So yeah, I've started coaching people and there's no greater feeling than working with somebody for a few months and literally watching them change because of they become happier and they stop drinking and they go through the hard first. There's a lot of hard firsts on this journey that can trip you up. The party, the holiday, the vacation, the wedding, the bad day. So having a coach to be able to talk those things through and come up with a plan, I think it's really helpful for a lot of people. Also to be held accountable, right?
Mm.
I've had clients say to me like, "Oh, I really wanted to drink on Tuesday, but I knew we were talking today and I knew I didn't want to have to tell you that I drank, so I didn't do it." If
Mm.
that got you through that craving, great. Because the first 3 months of the journey are really, really critical. And I think once you get through 3 months, you're kind of on some kind of like a solid ground. I mean, yeah, there's still a lot to do after 3 months, but
Mm.
I think it takes about 3 months for real change to happen and for new patterns and routines to be created and kind of dismantle some old limiting beliefs that we might have had. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. I'd say 90 days, 100 days, if you can do that distance, then everything changes as well. So yeah, that's really good. And so when you look back to that person who was June or July time 2020 and you think about the runner that ran past you, what would you maybe say to that person?
I would say that was the universe, though. I really would say that was the universe sending a sign, having this, forcing me to really think about my life and what kind of like path I wanted to go down. Right.
Mm.
I don't think there are coincidences in life. I think everything is some kind of sign or signal from the universe. And it's really how do we interpret it and how do we decode it? And I had been in such a bad place for so long. I think it was really like, do you want to be like this person or do you want to be like the person you are now? And I didn't. A big more of me wanted to change than wanted to stay the same.
Mm. Yeah, amazing. And so what's next?
What's next? I guess I'm opening this space in New York City. It is really not for the faint of heart. It is a lot of work in a great way, but I learn a lot every single day about what it takes to open a space in New York City. Doing programming for software is great because I get to do the events that I want to be doing, but with a whole team of people. So, they can be on a way bigger scale and caliber than what I was doing on my own. I'm going to still keep coaching. I might be doing a dry January group program again this year. I did one last year. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what's in store for the future, really. But I do feel like I'm living in alignment, which is the best feeling ever. Right. And I just try every day to, like, I don't know, just be the best version of myself that I can and tell myself I'm doing my best, but still push myself out of my comfort zone, right? Because I don't ever want to be like that person I was where I was just stagnant and stuck and just complacent. I just don't want to be that way. So I don't know. Oh, I'm writing a book too. I'm trying to write a book. I've been just trying for years. It's taking forever, but that is going to happen. I say it all the time, so it's going to happen.
And what's the book about?
It's about my journey and really
Mm.
ADHD. It's more about, I think, ADHD than it is about alcohol. Because I've been diagnosed with ADHD for over 20 years now. And it's definitely the defining factor in my life. For most of the things I do are because of my ADHD or in some way linked to it. It's so intertwined into everything, and not enough people understand how much it is related to addiction. Like, they are hand in hand. And I tell people that, like, I forget that people don't know that. And I'm like, oh, it's because of the ADHD. And they're like, what do you mean? How is it related? I'm like, I need to tell everybody how they're related.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I wish I had known that.
it's definitely coming out a lot more in terms of the links between alcohol and ADHD. But maybe for the person who isn't aware, who might be listening, do you want to give a brief explanation?
Yeah, I think it was like what I said earlier. It's really the brief of it is ADHD people don't produce as much dopamine naturally. So
Mm,
anything that, like, gives you a dopamine release, nicotine, music, alcohol, people, food, it could be anything you can become addicted to. So
mm,
it's really easy to be addicted to alcohol because it's a highly addictive substance, right? And it releases dopamine really quickly. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But you're right. I think people just weren't aware, and it's becoming a more common knowledge. But it's
You know what I
definitely
think it is, though? I think
interesting.
it's common knowledge for us in that we're in the bubble.
Yeah.
Okay. We
Mm,
are in this world. But people that
mm,
not only aren't in this world, they're maybe not on social media, maybe they don't follow alcohol or ADHD accounts or whatever, they really don't know. And
mm.
so there aren't many books about it. There aren't many people
Yeah,
talking about it. And
yeah.
I think so. I want to talk about those links, but also put my story in there so people don't feel so alone. And if I could get over it and I can kind of manage it, then it's possible for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on it. And I know it will happen. Do you have a date or will you just see it?
Well, I am in a book proposal boot camp that my friend is putting on every week. So I'm trying to get my proposal done. So we'll see what happens. But yeah,
Oh, exciting. Exciting.
thank
Well,
you.
I'm sure it'll be an amazing book and so helpful for people as well. So that's fantastic. The other thing I wanted to pick up on was the getting out of your comfort zone. And I think that's again something that when you stop drinking, I absolutely believe it makes you brave. It gives you a superpower. It's probably the best kept secret, not drinking, and it does push you out of your comfort zone. But again, for the person listening who's thinking, well, I've got enough friends. I've been there, done it. I don't need more friends. I don't need to try new things and find new passions, which is something I talk about a lot. How would you encourage them?
Well, I would if wait, are they still drinking or have they already stopped drinking?
So the person listening could be thinking about stopping drinking,
Well,
or
if you
could,
stop
yeah.
drinking, yeah, if you stop drinking, you want to wait and see who's still left around in a few months because no matter how close your friends are, how close your community is, I haven't met one person who hasn't lost some kind of relationship when they got sober. And that's because we usually surround ourselves with other people that drink in excess as well to make us feel like, I don't know, that's just the pattern. So when one person stops drinking, it makes everyone else question their drinking. And some people don't want to question it and they don't want to think about it. And then you also realize you don't have that much in common. Maybe drinking was all you had in common and you don't do that anymore. So you're going to lose people in your life. Not in a way that's scary, in a way that's exciting, because then it creates space for new people to come in.
Mm.
And so my
Mm.
advice would be, okay, well, just give yourself a few months and then see where you're at. I mean, I think you just want to take it day by day, right?
Mm.
But finding ways to kind of just expand your comfort zone every day, whether you're drinking or not, I think is a good practice for people to do. That's how
Mm.
we grow and change and learn.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, Rachel. How can people find you and get in touch with all the great work you're doing?
Also, Instagram at Sober in Central Park, or send me an email, soberincentralpark@gmail.com. And yeah, like, I'm always on social. So
Brilliant. Okay, and so I always end these podcasts with, what does thriving alcohol free mean to you? So I'd love to hear your answer to that.
I think to me, it means living in alignment with the universe, with your purpose, with whatever you're meant to be doing in this life. But being alcohol free really helps you figure out what that is and get rid of the noise. And once you're living in that world, it just feels so good. You don't want to stop. So that's what it means to me.
Oh, such a great answer. Thank you. Absolutely living in alignment. I think that is so, so true. And it gives you that sense of peace, I think, as well, that you're exactly where you need to be and the things come. So, and it obviously sounds like so much has happened and so much has come for you. So I'm really pleased that we were able to do this and you could share your story. Thanks for being on.
Same. Thank you so much for having me. It was great being here.
So lovely to see you. Take care. Well, thank you, Rachel. I do hope you found that episode useful, especially if you weren't aware of the links between ADHD and addiction. So I think that's always helpful to understand. And how exciting with the new bar in New York that's going to be opening in January, February next year. I'm sure if you are around, it will be definitely worth visiting. So thank you for being on, Rachel. And I loved what she said about thriving alcohol free and how it's all about living in alignment. And I think that's so true. So if you want to find out more about Rachel, feel free to reach out to her on Instagram or email her as she suggested. Okay, well, a couple of things as we head into the holiday season. We've got Thanksgiving coming up, and we have got Christmas and New Year, Hanukkah, all the holiday plans coming up. If you are thinking that I'm going to wait till January to take that break and I will enjoy the next season, then absolutely do that. But if you are thinking maybe I want some tips for stopping drinking now, or I'd like to really think about that and start now so that by the time January comes, I'll be all set because I would have done a bit of time alcohol free, then feel free to get in touch and we can discuss some potential options. Feel free to book a call. I'll leave the link in the show notes below and we can discuss what could potentially work for you to do prior to dry January. And I also wanted to remind you that we have the Finding Freedom retreat in June next year, June the 5th to the 12th next year. So if you're thinking about next year and what you want to do vacation wise or how you want to spend your time when you're not working, then I would highly encourage you to check out the retreat. It's going to be a transformational experience where you'll really come back feeling nourished, feeling in alignment and clear on what you want to do next. And you will meet some like minded women and have an instant alcohol free community. So, if that's something you're interested in, the early bird is still on. It won't be on for much longer. So, make sure you secure your space today. It's going to be a really intimate group. There are only 12 of us, and yeah, spaces are filling. So if you would like to be part of it and you think it's something you want to plan for 2025 and maybe ask for it as a present or a gift in this season, then I'd love to hear from you and we can discuss whether it's the right thing for you, so that you can secure your spot as soon as possible. Okay, well, have a wonderful week, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Thrive Alcohol Free podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe so you get alerted every time I drop a new episode. I'd love it if you could rate, review, and share this episode. Feel free to tag me on Instagram at Thrive Alcohol Free and follow me for daily tips. If you would like to work with me, I offer one-to-one coaching sessions and have my group coaching program. If you're not yet ready for coaching, I also have a self-paced online course, which is a companion to my book, A Cocktail of Clarity. All the links are in the show notes. I will see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful week. Take care.